Hey all and welcome. I'm Matt Bell. I'm a PPR certified coach and one of the pro instructors at Central Wind's Pickleball Center down here in Central Florida. Today, I want to talk about paddles. This is definitely not a paddle review, nor am I going to recommend any particular company or model. But I am going to reference a particular paddle that I see a ton in the facility where I coach, and why I believe it's so popular. The paddle in question is the first version of the Selkirk Luxx Control Air Invikta, which I have right here. That name is pretty ridiculous, so I'm just going to refer to this paddle as the Luxx for the rest of this video. Selkirk just released the version 2 of this paddle, which is designed to have a bit more power and pop, but to deliver that same plush, dwelly feel that the original Luxx was known for. I'm talking about the Luxx in particular because it's a paddle that tends to be classified very much in the control category. The conventional wisdom is that a paddle like this is best suited for players who favor control over a more aggressive game style. The Luxx is often criticized for its lack of offensive power and pop, its $250 price, which has now actually gone up to $280 for the newest version, its spray-on texture that loses its grittiness pretty quickly, and its edgeless design with a throat hole that a lot of people look at as kind of a dead-end design. So this sounds like a pretty garbage paddle, right? Now here's the crazy thing. The Luxx is Selkirk's best-selling paddle. Yes, you heard that right. An edgeless paddle with spray-on grit that costs more than twice as much as most other control paddles is a bestseller? Huh? When I first heard this, I was a bit shocked, honestly. Then, as I tend to do, I started thinking really seriously about why this might be. Is it just because of the Selkirk name? Is it because it's priced high and people who just don't know any better just think it's good because it costs a lot? Is it just because it looks cool? While these factors might have something to do with it, I think there's a lot more going on here. So let's go ahead and unpack that. So if this paddle is Selkirk's best seller, yet most reviewers are not particularly favorable towards it, what does that say? Who's buying this thing? And why are they buying it in such huge numbers? Selkirk is never going to say why this is happening, and I'd never expect them to. But what I can say about Selkirk, though, is that they've been in the pickleball business for a really, really long time, comparatively, and they know the demographics that they're serving with every single paddle they release. The huge sales of the Luxx are not an accident. So here's what I think, based on my clients and friends that all love the Luxx. This paddle has a truly unique feel that a lot of people enjoy, and its attributes actually suit lots of different styles of gameplay. At $250 plus, I can also guess that a large majority of players buying the Luxx have demoed one before they actually purchased. So those people, they know what they're buying at this point. Now, a paddle that has high spin numbers, but considerably less power and pop, can be a really, really smart choice for all levels of player, and especially for those players who are coming over to pickleball from tennis. Those players tend to favor longer swings and can hit their ground strokes from anywhere on the court. But if you hand them a power paddle, those long swings, those are going to get them in serious trouble, especially from the transition zone and the kitchen. Now, however, if you hand them a Luxx, they're going to get plenty of spin, and the lack of power and pop will actually help them keep the ball in the court. The same thing is actually true for people coming to the game with no racket sports background. Those folks are likely to hit a much flatter ball without a lot of topspin, which if they hit it with power, it's going to go out. Even with less than ideal technique, the grit on the Luxx will give these players some amount of topspin anyway, and the lack of power again will help them to keep those flatter balls in the court much more of the time. The Luxx also does a really great job of absorbing shock from the ball impact. So, if you're somebody who maybe grips too tightly, like this guy, or has some elbow or forearm issues already, also like this guy, it's a solid choice. That edgeless design and the throat hole keep the swing weight a bit lower. So that helps if you want to use an elongated shape, but you want to keep the swing weight in a more manageable range. Pickleball's at a phase in its development where we're chasing power all the time in our paddles. Here's the thing though. When you prioritize power and pop in a paddle, spin actually suffers. Because of the USAP regulations on paddles, the spin is also capped, in addition to the power and pop categories. And The current max level of allowable spin is proportionally lower compared to the other elements. So in order to get power, pop, and spin to actually balance out all equally, which produces a much more controllable paddle, you have to back off on the power and the pop pretty severely to match the levels of allowable spin at present. What we end up with in power-oriented paddles is a typical paddle that hits very, very hard, but can be very difficult for most players under the 4-5 plus level to actually control. You might be able to hit faster serves, drives, and counters, but a lot more of them are just going to wind up off the court, unless your technique is advanced enough to be able to add a lot of topspin on your own without the help of the surface grid of the paddle. So what's the grand takeaway for you then? Am I saying that you shouldn't use a power paddle? Absolutely not. My current main is the Apes Pulse S, which could definitely fall into the power category. I switched to the Apes from a very, very control-oriented paddle that had super high spin numbers because I was specifically looking for a little boost on my serves, counters, and putaways. Bonus points to anyone who can name my former paddle in the comments because it's actually right behind me. It's the one with the white edge guard. With the Pulse S, I for sure hit more winners than I used to. Here's the thing though, I also made a ton more errors for quite a while I learned how to more effectively control the power that was coming off that paddle. So here's my suggestion. Demo as many paddles as you can before actually buying one. What ultimately matters is what a paddle feels like to you, not what a reviewer says or how a company classifies or describes their product. You're the only person who best knows how your body responds to a particular paddle, how your strokes work, and what your general approach to playing actually is. You can't know if something feels good to you, more importantly if it doesn't feel good to you, until you get out there and put some reps on it. Try all the things. Different shapes, different technologies, different categories, you name it, try it. Don't think that because you have a more of a control-oriented style that you should or have to use a control paddle, or because you like to play aggressively that you should only use power paddles. What you're going to find over time is that you'll develop a profile of sorts. You'll figure out a general framework for what makes you the most comfortable in terms of power level, spin, and pop, and what shapes, construction, and materials will tend to deliver those results for you. So here's my profile, for instance. I absolutely love spin, and a paddle that helps me generate as much spin as I can possibly get is my #1 priority. My next priority is power on full swings, and my last priority is actually pop at the kitchen. I use a lot of short swings and roll volleys, so a paddle that feels headlight and is fast at the kitchen is best for me. I also like a paddle that feels softer overall and where I feel like the ball sinks into the face, giving more dwell time. If you're somebody that's still watching at this point, thanks, and you obviously are somebody that takes your pickleball learning really seriously. So get out there and experiment. What you want out of a paddle is going to change over time, and to me, that's a big part of the fun of it. Comment below and tell me about your paddle journey, what you're currently using, and if you have any questions, I'll try and answer them in the comments. Thanks for spending time with me, and I'll see you out there on the courts.